Hello and welcome. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran and I have with me a very special guest, Ambassador Pham Sanh Chau of Vietnam, to talk about bilateral, regional and global issues of interest or concern to both Hanoi and New Delhi. Ambassador, thank you so much for making time to talk to us at DD India. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Welcome, Ambassador. If I can begin by asking you, Ambassador, if you can give our viewers an overview of the bilateral ties between Vietnam and India in terms of trade, investments, people-to-people ties and the strategic partnership between the two countries.
I would like to begin by saying that the relationship between Vietnam and India is excellent. It was excellent, it is excellent, it continues to be excellent. That relationship started more than 2,000 years ago when Buddhism spread into Vietnam first, and after that it came to Vietnam again via China. So our bilateral relation is cultural, historical, and civilizational.
Absolutely.
Yes, and over the past 1 century we have been supporting each other in our national struggle for independence.
True.
And now for our national construction and renewal. So according to our category of partners and friends in the world, you normally classify countries according to friendly countries.
True.
In our system we classify friendly country, traditional country, comprehensive partners, strategic partner, and strategic comprehensive partnership, which is the highest level in the ladder of classification.
Right.
And India is on the top of that one.
Indeed. As you mentioned, Ambassador, about the comprehensive strategic partnership,
Yes.
I believe Vietnam has the comprehensive strategic partnership with only 3 countries in the world.
That's
Russia,
correct.
China and
India. Yes,
Indeed.
that's true.
And talking about India-Vietnam ties, Ambassador, India pursues what it calls the Act East policy. So where would India figure in Vietnam's foreign policy in terms of its dealings with countries in South Asia, especially India?
As I mentioned earlier, India ranked the first
Right.
in our category of friendly and strategic comprehensive partnership.
Right.
So it goes without saying that India always priority in our foreign policy. And it is priority in more than one way. Number one, in defense and security.
Right.
Defense and security is the pillar of the cooperation between Vietnam and India. We have recently we have the 2 LOC, one line of credit. One is 100 million US dollar, that which is under implementation. The second one is 500 million US dollar, which is under discussion for final implementation.
Right.
And we also have a lot of exchange of delegation. I give you one example.
Sure.
Over the past 2 months, we have 4 high-ranking military delegations visiting India.
I see.
First is the general chief of the general staff, 4-star general, who came here. And after that, we have the deputy chief of general staff, who came and attend the graduation ceremony in Gaya. And the third one, who just came and who just left to attend the Lucknow Defense Expo. And the fourth one is he's coming tonight.
I see.
So within 2 months, we have 4 military delegations. We exchange a lot on not only global issue, but we talk also about defense production. We talk about training our people. We talk about sharing our intelligent information. So it varies in many fields. And we also have the cooperations in public security.
Right.
And that is one of the pillars. The second pillar is economic matter. We have a total value of the trade between the two countries reaching nearly 15 billion. It's hard to imagine 10 years back. 10 years back, we occupy only 10% of the total of the value between the two countries. And it was at that time just a couple of 100 million. And now it's 15 billion. So it's growing. And interestingly, we have a promising of investment from India into Vietnam. And leading this trend is DHL, the information company, who made a decision to invest into Vietnam. Right. And we also have other companies coming up. Of course, we should not forget the presence there by ONGC and by ASEAN company, which are exploring oil and gas in Vietnam. Right. And we also have other companies which are interested in that. On Vietnamese side, we also want to invest in India, and some companies intend to set up their business here. That also include software, that also include development of steel, aluminium in order to make the aluminium tube, because we have that expertise, things like that. Right. And in terms of OD, or in terms of LOC, we are thinking of bringing a friendship bridge, which is the symbol between Vietnam and India, and that one we are working on it. Okay. Because at the moment in Vietnam we have several friendship bridges built by the LOC of Japan, of China, of Russia, of Australia, things like that. And I think that as a comprehensive, strategic comprehensive partner, India should have something which stand out as India in Vietnam. Sure. On the third area is about people-to-people contact. Tomorrow we launch officially the direct flight between New Delhi and Hanoi, or Hanoi, Delhi, Ho Chi Minh City, Delhi. But in addition to that, which is already in operation over the past 2 months, right. And the load indicator is more than nearly 89%. Can you imagine? 89% when you just open the link for just for two months. And tomorrow, our Vietjet airline decided to open the direct flight between Mumbai and Da Nang, and then also Delhi and Da Nang. So it's booming. Right. We are very happy to see the increased inflow of visitors both ways. Right. India coming to Vietnam, Vietnam into India. I share you one thing. Since we have the direct flight, I become very, very busy going back and forth at the airport, picking friends, relatives, things like that, see them off. So it's very hectic. And also about education. We try to make India a study destination for Vietnamese people. On the other hand, we try to make Vietnam as the destination for wedding in India. We have been able to do that over the past 2 years with the 2 fetish Indian wedding, one in Phu Quoc, the second one in Da Nang, one from Mumbai, the other come from Jaipur, and we are working on the third one, also coming from Jaipur, and that will be in Yên Tu, which is in the northern part of Vietnam. So I think that there are a lot of things which are opening up for our bilateral relations, and I'm certain that the future is very bright for this relationship.
Ambassador, you spoke about some of the pillars of the bilateral relationship: defense and security, trade, investments, and energy. Let's tackle all of these issues one by one. Now, talking about defense and security, there's a lot of talk and expectation at least in the Indian media circles, about India-Vietnam cooperation extending to the acquisition or sale of the BrahMos missile, which is a joint venture between India and Russia. There's also talk about having a more robust partnership in terms of training for the Vietnamese Air Force personnel for the Sukhoi jets. So could you give us an overview of the current state of play in terms of defense ties between Vietnam and India?
Everything is under discussion, and I think that the prospect is very bright. Indeed, in terms of training, we have already conducted some training. We send our people, our armed forces people here to get further training. We also have Indian English teaching who come and teach our army people. So the training is doing very well. In terms of equipment, I would like to say that reparation of equipment first. It is also underway. It's very good. On the construction of new equipment, the 100 LOC is helping us to build 12 new ship. And it is being manufactured at the moment in Chennai, in TNB, LT, LNT. So it's continue. So everything is possible. So I think that this is one of the very important that reflect the highest level of mutual trust between the two countries.
And is there any forward movement on the issue of BrahMos, for instance?
I have no comment on that.
All right, fair enough. Let's talk about trade and investments, Ambassador. Are you satisfied with the current volume of trade, and is there scope for improvement in the years ahead?
Certainly. Let's say over the past 3 years, we have been able to double the total value of trade between the two countries, and the room is still big for further improvement. The trade between Vietnam and China is more than 100 million US dollar. Therefore, I think that India, which has the size of China, deserves to have more value trade between the two countries. So it is under discussion, and that's why the embassy tried to organize various conferences and seminars in order to promote not only tourism but also trade. And people on the both sides try to meet and to make inquiry in order to promote their trade activities.
Sure.
I think it's very promising.
Right. Another important pillar is energy security, especially oil and gas. Now, ONGC of India is participating in several projects in Vietnam. What's the current status of those projects, and are we looking to beef up or ramp up Indian investments in oil and gas sectors in Vietnam?
I think that India has been in Vietnam since 1986. You cannot imagine that India has established so well over the past more than 40 years. And at the moment, they are doing very, very well. Every year, Indian companies have been able to repatriate a good number of profit that come from that tri-party exploitation. And as such has made a new discovery, which is very viable commercially. And we hope that they can come into the massive operation. So basically, the cooperation is very good and it's very profitable to both sides.
But there was some controversy, especially from the Chinese side, about the India-Vietnam energy cooperation in the South China Sea. Is that now a thing of the past? Have we moved on beyond that?
I think that we are doing in our territorial waters, and our EEZ, defined by UNCLOS 1982. So there's no reason to be fear of anything at all.
So China has no basis to complain?
Not at all, not at all. Yes, yes. This is within the EEZ of Vietnam.
Right.
Yes, of course, you see that some country would like to have the similar activities, and perhaps they will find one way or another to get that. But I think anything should be very much in conformity with international law.
Absolutely. And just one quick question on the South China Sea itself. There's a lot of criticism of the way China has handled this particular issue to the detriment of several countries in the ASEAN, including Vietnam. How does Vietnam see China's posturing or the alleged militarization of the South China Sea? And are you worried about how China is handling this issue?
Our Vietnam position is very clear. We underlined the importance of maintaining peace and security in the region. Because without peace, without security, no country will be able to develop and prosper. That's number one. Number two, if there is any dispute, you have to base yourself on the international law.
Right.
Because we have to let international law prevail. And we are living in a world that requires us to be law-abiding more than ever. So international law is very important. And when it deals with the sea, UNCLOS 1982 is the most appropriate and relevant instrument for all of us to be abide by. And thirdly, no one should threat to use the force.
Right.
Because everything should be settled by peaceful means and in accordance with international law. And finally, I think that what is important is that all the country in the what belong to bilateral dispute should be addressed by two countries or two party concerned. What belong to the multi countries like Spratly Island should be addressed by all the party concerned. But above that, peace and security, freedom of navigation, freedom of overflight should be maintained for the benefit of not only the countries in the region, but also of the country outside the region. Because South China Sea is the main lane of transport for more than 50% of the world. And in case of India, it's 55%. So with that, I think that all the countries need to behave responsibly. And the bigger a country is, the more responsibly that country should behave.
Indeed. And Ambassador, talking about the comprehensive strategic partnership signed in 2016 between Vietnam and India, how important would be the cooperation in terms of nuclear energy and space? Are both countries working towards augmenting their cooperation in these two spheres?
At our embassy, we have one we call technological and scientific cooperation division. So we don't have that division in all embassies across the world. It means that with India, we do see a potential to cooperate in the field of civilian nuclear energy. And we are working on that. We have worked in the past, and we're working that very much on that. And I think that expertise and experience provided by Indian experts can be of great assistance to Vietnam, because we also need to use nuclear for civilian purpose. And also in addition to that, we also want to develop further our ability to conduct research on the outer space. So basically, this is a very rare but very highly appreciated field of cooperation, which add value to our comprehensive strategic partner, India, Vietnam.
So is Vietnam looking to have its first nuclear energy plant in the years to come?
And at some time in the past, we decided to have a nuclear energy plant. And finally, we changed our mind for environmental reason. We decided to stop. What we are doing now at the moment is to use nuclear radiation to promote, like let's say, to be applied in farming, for farming in X-ray of the tropical fruits before they are exported overseas. So things like that. You see that there are many fields where we can use that kind of technology.
Ambassador, talking about regional issues now, Vietnam is the current chair of the ASEAN. And as always, the Indian Prime Minister can be expected to visit Vietnam later this year for the ASEAN Summit, for the East Asia Summit as well. So in terms of the ASEAN, in the context of the ASEAN, how do you look at Vietnam-India ties growing in the regional format?
Vietnam is very pleased to assume the ASEAN chairmanship this year, 2020. And at the same time, we are assuming our role as a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council. This is a dual role that for the first time Vietnam is assuming. And our priority when we assume our chairmanship in ASEAN is to make sure that ASEAN is cohesive and ASEAN is responsive. Cohesive, we mean that we need to strengthen the internal solidarity of ASEAN to try to promote the sense of ASEAN identity, to deepen the internal integration among ASEAN members, to build ASEAN community, things like that. On the cohesive, we try to make sure that ASEAN be able to respond to all the new challenges. And that also includes the new challenges in terms of climate change, in terms of non-traditional threat, and also in terms of security and peace. And we really want ASEAN to be center of all the future security structure of the region. And here comes the role of India. When we assume our ASEAN chairmanship, we would like to make sure that ASEAN will be able to deepen its relations with its external partner. We have 16 partners, including India. And Vietnam, once upon a time, just 2 years back, assumed the coordinator role between ASEAN and India. And now in our new chair, we want to strengthen that relationship between ASEAN and other international partners, including India. But we profit from our strong relationship with India in order to make India more closer to ASEAN and be a strong partner of ASEAN. Right. And therefore, we would love to have the Prime Minister Modi at the ASEAN Summit in November this year in Vietnam.
And talking about bilateral ties, Ambassador, Buddhist tourism is a big component of the growing people-to-people ties between Vietnam and India, and generally between India and Southeast Asia as a whole. So if I were to ask you about the cultural aspect of the relationship, are more Vietnamese tourists wanting to come to India to visit on a Buddhist pilgrimage, so to speak? And how popular would India be in the average Vietnamese person's mind in terms of, I mean, is yoga popular? Is Bollywood popular in Vietnam? And is that going to help foster better people-to-people ties going forward?
I agree with you 100%. There are three things from India that come straight to the mind of the ordinary Vietnamese when it comes to India. The first one is Buddhism. So when I got posted here, people said, oh, I want to come to see you because I would love to come to see the birthplace of Lord Buddha. Right. And you will see the number of Vietnamese visitors to India keep increasing, right. Mostly because of Buddhism connection. The second thing is that yoga is so popular in Vietnam.
Is it?
I think it's one of the most popular sport practice in Vietnam. And you see that at my consular section here, we have a lot of application of yoga teacher to go to Vietnam to teach. It spreads across the country, 63 provinces. So on the yoga day, 21st June, we have thousands of people who take to the street and perform yoga. I can assure you that no better place or no better country in the world than Vietnam. You can go for the day 21, the International Yoga Day. And on about Bollywood, we are at the moment watching drama, the story of the 8-year-old bride girl. I don't know how it is in India, but 8-year-old bride girl. That story ran 2 years. And all the mothers and the housewife keep watching that every night. And when they come to when they know that I'm coming here, say that okay, I want to see and to come in to see the Bollywood people. So Bollywood in the past, even during the time of the war between America and Vietnam, Bollywood play a very critical role already. Of course, now it play less because we have influence from Hollywood, from Korean, from other countries, from Chinese, other countries. But it is one of the elements. But in addition to that, we also have the people would love to practice, you know what? Vegetarian. Yes, now in India, nowadays 50-60% are veg. Now in Vietnam, there is a growing tendency of becoming vegetarian. So this is a very new and interesting development and trend which bear influence from India. Perhaps because of yoga, perhaps because of they follow Buddhist teaching. So that, having said that, I want to say that Vietnamese people ordinarily are bearing a huge influence from India in terms of cultural life.
And finally, Ambassador, you've been in India for some time now, and you had the time to travel and see much of India outside of Delhi as well. Where all have you been, including your most recent visit to Jammu and Kashmir? So could you give us a flavor of what you saw and how you felt traveling across the length and breadth of India?
I have been in India more than 1 year and have been able to visit 21 states. I try to finish the other 7 states more in the next few months. I'm going to Mizoram and Tripura. Our trips to Jammu Kashmir is a very interesting trip, and at the moment I have advised some tourist company to do some exploratory trip in order to make the package. So I hope that in this summer a lot of Vietnamese people will be able to come and enjoy the beauty of Jammu Kashmir, especially in the valley region, and especially to see the snow there. When I came there, I often say that, oh, this is the beauty of Switzerland in South Asia. So congratulations for that beauty. But I also want to not educate but advertise India, because at the moment people from Vietnam who come to India mainly for Buddhist pilgrimage. Right. Now I want them to visit different places. I want them to go to
in Ladakh as well.
Ladakh, Sikkim, Darjeeling. I also want them to visit different places. You have more than 36 UNESCO sites. Right. They are very beautiful. I'm preparing a trip for my family to Atlanta, near Pune, and I also prepare for them to go to the backwater of Kerala,
which is where I come from.
Oh, congratulations, it's beautiful. And I also want to promote those who speak French in Vietnam to go to see the Puducherry, which I will come in a couple of few days. So it is very important. And I forget to mention, in the cooperation in the defense, we are going to have one ship who attend the mainland exercise, and we are waiting for the Indian ship to attend our fleet review in Nha Trang in a couple of months. So with that, I also promote them to see the coastline of India, right, which is all beautiful.
Right. On that note, Ambassador, thank you so much for making time to talk to us at DD India. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Pleasure. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.